Aloha, I'm Carolyn Tanaka, and welcome to another segment of Live at the Legislature. Every week we'll be sitting down with various members of the House of Representatives to talk about issues, concerns, and whatever else is happening here at the state legislature. This morning we have with us Representative Greg Takayama. He is the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and he represents Pearl City, Waimalu, and Pacific Palisades. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning, Carolyn. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for being here. Well, you know, as the chair of the public safety, under public safety comes corrections and civil defense.
Yes.
Now, this past January, we had the false missile alert. What became very clear was that we were totally unprepared. State government, county government, private sector, tourism, DOE.
That's a great point, Carolyn. You know, January 13th happened on a Saturday. Now, just imagine if it happened on a school day. I personally think it would have been chaos. Not so much among the schools themselves, because, you know, they have drills where they take shelter, but imagine the number of parents who would be rushing to the schools when, you know, the word that emergency management tries to send out is, if it's an immediate case of a missile coming in, you need to take shelter immediately. You only have 15 or 20 minutes. And so there's no time to go pick up your children. There's no time to drive somewhere else. You need to take shelter immediately. But, you know, I imagine that there'd be a large number of parents trying to pick up their children from their neighborhood schools. Mm-hmm. And so that's just one example of how I think January 13th showed that we're not really prepared for an emergency like that.
You could, Representative, you could sort of call it, in a warped sort of way, a blessing in disguise.
I think you're right, yeah.
You ran the joint public informational hearing that we had in January about the false missile alert. Yeah. So now we're in session. What are some of the things that the legislature, that the House is taking a look at to attack?
Well, one of the bills that we're moving in the State House is one to take a bigger look at what happened, the circumstances of the emergency drill, and our preparedness or lack of preparedness as a community for a disaster, whether it's a tsunami or a hurricane or an incoming missile. One of the bills we're pushing is to create an emergency preparedness task force that brings in all segments of the community, from the schools, the UH, the business community, our shippers, and really take a deep look at what we really need to do as a community to prepare for an emergency. For example, if there were a disaster, whether it's a tsunami or a hurricane, that affected our Honolulu harbor. It's the only harbor that's capable of offloading containers. Mm-hmm. So imagine that there were a hurricane or a nuclear attack that disabled Honolulu harbor. We would not be able to ship anything to the neighbor islands because none of the neighbor islands have the capacity to offload container ships. So even though their stores may have a capacity of a few days or even a couple weeks of food supplies, it's estimated that the harbor would take many months to be repaired. So what do you do in the meantime? There's no backup plan.
Is there any, besides the task force, is there anything else that the legislature's taking a look at?
One of the other bills that we're pushing along is to provide that all new government buildings, including schools, provide for some kind of emergency shelter that's a hurricane-safe shelter. You know, we spend millions of dollars every year to retrofit our older schools to provide some kind of hurricane-safe shelter. But at the same time, there are no standards for requiring new buildings to have that shelter capacity. So, you know, conceivably, we're going to be spending millions to retrofit schools we're building even now. So why not make them safe to begin with?
Well, I am sure that this thing it was still in the news, a front page story again today, so I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more about this, and that the legislature will probably be holding some more hearings and things.
We certainly will be. You know, the governor's commission General Hara to do a 30-day and a 45-day report on what happened and steps that are being taken to prevent it from happening again. Well, we're pretty close to the 30-day report, so we're taking a look at maybe having a briefing for us to find out the findings of the report.
Well, good. Moving on, Greg, you are also the co-chair of the Kupuna Caucus.
That's right.
And it's not because you're a Kupuna.
Although
no,
I am, yes.
Although you are, but you don't have to be a member of the Kupuna Caucus
right.
to be in the caucus. But let's talk about some of the major issues facing our senior citizens today. And I understand that there is a particular bill, the Kupuna Caregiver Bill, that we are particularly proud of.
That's right. You know, last year, Hawaii became the first state in the country to enact a special law that takes care or tries to take the first step in taking care of our working caregivers. You know, there are more than 100,000 family caregivers here in Hawaii. It's a tradition, largely a Hawaiian tradition, for our families to take care of our older ones. And we have, as I said, 150,000 family caregivers here in Hawaii. Well, oftentimes the family caregivers are working full-time. Oftentimes they tend to be women. And so what we've done is provide a small so-called stipend, up to $70 a day for these family caregivers to apply for and maybe send their loved ones to a adult daycare program, so they can still continue to work, remain in the workforce. And as I said, we're in the second year now. We're seeking $2 million to expand the program, and hopefully the bill will move. We'll have a hearing on it tomorrow in the House.
What other issues, priority issues, has the caucus identified?
Well, you know, Hawaii has done really well in terms of taking care of our kupuna. AARP comes out with a survey every 2 years as to how well the 50 states do in this area. Hawaii consistently rates in the top 5. Regardless, even though the cost of nursing care is very high in Hawaii, we still do very well compared to other states. And so one of the big programs is Kupuna Care, which enables our elderly to remain at home for as long as they can, rather than go into nursing homes.
What are the challenges, though, Representative, in funding these programs?
Well, you know, it's always a competition every year for dollars because there are so many needs in the state. So Kupuna compete with Keiki and working families and everyone else for their share of the dollars. What's important to remember is that our numbers of kupuna are growing. In about 15 years, fully 1/3 of our state will be over the age of 60.
Great. Well, thank you. There is so much more that we could talk about on both the civil defense front and in the Kupuna area, but I'd like to thank you for joining us. And thanks to all of you for being with us again. And if you want to find out what's coming up here at the Ledge, please go to capital.hawaii.gov for all the information you ever wanted to have or know about the state legislature. Aloha, see you next week.
Live at the Legislature is a live half-hour weekly news program that focuses on the issues, legislation, and topics of importance emerging from this year's legislative session. Each week, state senators and representatives provide a variety of perspectives on the issues from both sides of the aisle. Tune in to Live at the Legislature weekly to get exclusive updates on what's happening in Hawaii's legislature.
Do you know your legislators? Visit capital.hawaii.gov and enter your street name to find detailed information about your representatives and senators. From your district number to the committees and current bills your legislators have introduced, this is an easy way to stay up to date with what is happening in your community. If you're looking for detailed information concerning Hawaii State Senate and House hearings, please visit olelo.org/gov-archives. Videos are arranged by date, with the most recent at the top of the list.
Are you looking for an easy way to get involved in the legislative process? Stop by the Public Access Room located in Room 401 at the Hawaii State Capitol. Open Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. in session. The Public Access Room provides citizens of Hawaii's facilities, services, and equipment to enhance their ability to participate in the legislative process. The public is welcome to track and affect legislation pending before the Hawaii State Legislature.
Aloha and welcome to Live at the Legislature. I'm Jill Kuramoto, and every week we sit down with Hawaii senators to talk about the events and the issues that are happening here at the Capitol. And today we have Senator Jill Takuda. Senator Takuda is the chair of the Senate Committee on Labor. And good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Now, I know that your committee has been very busy this session dealing with a number of issues, wages, economy, family leave. Let's start with wages first. Now, I know last week your committee voted to advance a bill that would increase the minimum wage up to $12.25 an hour starting in the year 2019, and then up to $15 in the year 2020. I know there was a lot of strong testimony, both sides of the issue. Those that were in support of the measure say that they point to Hawaii's high cost of living as to why the increases should be made. What was your intention in introducing this measure?
Well, definitely in taking a look, the introducers of the measure, the fight for 15 as it's been called, it was a passionate discussion on both sides. We had small business owners come and talk about the difficulties that they're facing and how hard it would be if the measure came into place. And we really did sit and listen to all the testimony that they brought forward, talking about their struggles that they're having right now in the economy and what it would mean to them if the measure did pass. But we also heard from students from Hawaii Pacific University that came to us talking about how tough it was right now for them to have to balance going to school and managing full-time jobs, if not one, if not two, just trying to make ends meet and pay their rent, pay student loans, some having to drop out because they just couldn't afford to actually go to school and have a job and be able to make rent and keep food on the table. Talking to other individuals who had to balance out all the daily struggles of life, taking care of children and their families, what it would mean for them in terms of being able to get to that 15. You know, you talk about today's minimum wage increase that we just had, $10.10, going to 15, that's like a $10,000 difference right there if we were to get to that amount. And in real terms, that's just over $31,000 for an individual. And that really, in today's economy, really isn't a living wage if you think about it. If you look at rent, the cost of food, the cost of health care. So this really is about making sure that we look at how we can take care of families, take care of individuals that are struggling to take care of aging parents, put little ones through school. And that was the very tough debate that we were facing, and trying to make sure that we could care for everyone in our community.
Much of the opposition against the bill came from the business community who say that increasing the wages would be detrimental to their business. What is your response to that?
You know, it was a tough response, and as we said in the hearing, this really is about trying to move forward a lot of the issues of income inequality that we're trying to face. And as we bring this bill forward, it is about trying to make sure that as we care for one, we can care for all. And that's really what this is about. And we understand that it is a tough issue. It will be difficult for businesses, yes, but as we help others really start to close those income inequality gaps, this would be good for all of us.
Well, let's talk about another measure that recently passed out of committee. Senate Bill 2990 would establish a family leave program. That issue has been attempted before. How does this proposal differ from previous measures on family leave?
Well, first and foremost, and I think we just heard about the Kapuna Caucus efforts, and the fact that, last year we were able to move Kapuna caregivers forward and talk about raising the foundation and raising the floor in terms of supporting caregivers and families. I do believe paid family leave is going to be right up on there. The fact that we're acknowledging in Hawaii that caregivers are a huge part of our community. Every single day we are taking care of loved ones, whether it's keiki or whether it's our aging seniors. There's over 240 100,000 workers out there right now that have to care for aging loved ones. They're the primary caregivers out there in our communities. And it's estimated that by 2020, 40% of us will be caring for our aging parents. That's just the reality of the baby boomers saying, I'm going to retire, or I'm just not well enough and I need you to take care of me right now. We need to be sure that we have that supportive safety net available so that we can take care of each other, because being a caregiver is no easy task. I think every one of us at some point has either had to deal with that difficult decision, or we will be in that situation ourselves. I know in my own personal family situation, we have seen that struggle, and it is complicated and it is hard, very personally hard. So this paid family leave program really allows you to be able to care for your loved one with dignity and compassion, but also understand the economic hardship it can place on a family as well. For children as well, 7 in 10 children have 2 family members that are working, 2 working parents. If you take out their ability to be able to work, you jeopardize that child's welfare as well. Paid family leave makes sure that our children are in a safe economic situation as well. You can take care of kids, you can take care of family. So paid family leave now, this is the ability for us to take care of families, take care of our children, make sure we can all take care of each other. There's a number of paid family bills up this session. We're really making sure that we have the mechanism to make sure that we bring everyone to the table, from the insurance industry to the business industry, to all the advocates, to make sure that by 2020 we have a system of paid family leave to take care of everyone, especially those that need it the most, those individuals in our family that want to be able to age with dignity, our keiki that need us to support them at their youngest age, and especially our caregivers who want to be there for the loved ones that they love.
Right, and along the lines of caregivers, you mentioned this about Kupuna caregivers. Your proposal is actually asking for $4 million. That's a significant amount of money.
For myself, I've been involved in the aging advocacy, movement for over 20 years. I was a member of PABIA back in the late 90s, and I remember when Shim Kanazawa and others were just beating down our doors here at the legislature, saying we've got to do more. We have a tide of aging seniors that need our support. We've got to do better. And I do believe that the more that we can put into the Kupuna Caregivers program that we established last year, the better. Part of our bill also has a metrics of evaluation and assessment to make sure that we don't just put money there, we do it right, and we do good by the caregivers and the seniors that we want to support. So that bill is making sure we have the money, and the metrics, and the support system to make sure that we do well with that particular program. That $4 million will go far to make sure hundreds of individuals throughout our state get that supportive network of care that they need through this program that we established last year.
Terrific. Well, those are just a couple of the measures that have made it through committee. There's so many more, and of course, you can always check out capital.hawaii.gov to find out the latest that's happening here at the legislature. Thank you to Senator Takuda for being here, and thank you for watching Live at the Legislature. We'll see you next week.
Live at the Legislature is a live half-hour weekly news program that focuses on the issues, legislation, and topics of importance emerging from this year's legislative session. Each week, state senators and representatives provide a variety of perspectives on the issues from both sides of the aisle. Tune in to Live at the Legislature Weekly to get exclusive updates on what's happening in Hawaii's legislature.
Are you looking for an easy way to get involved in the legislative process? Stop by the Public Access Room located in Room 401 at the Hawaii State Capitol. Open Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. in session. The Public Access Room provides citizens of Hawaii's facilities, services, and equipment to enhance their ability to participate in the legislative process. The public is welcome to track and affect legislation pending before the Hawaii State Legislature.
Do you know your legislators? Visit capital.hawaii.gov and enter your street name to find detailed information about your representatives and senators. From your district number to the committees and current bills your legislators have introduced, this is an easy way to stay up to date with what is happening in your community. If you're looking for detailed information concerning Hawaii State Senate and House hearings, please visit olelo.org/gov-archives. Videos are arranged by date, with the most recent at the top of the list.
Aloha, and welcome back to Live at the Legislature. I'm Ka'eo Kealoha Lindsay with the House Minority. Our guest today is Representative Jean Ward, who serves as the House Minority Floor Leader and represents Hawaii Kai in District 17. Good morning, Rep. Ward.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here today.
So we'll be splitting this segment into two. One will kind of highlight your role as part of the loyal opposition, and the second will highlight more of the projects that your office is working on this session. So to begin, we had a couple of more controversial issues come up on the floor last week. We're at that point in session. So one of those was HB 1994, which, if passed, would make Hawaii effectively a sanctuary state. So, Rep. Ward, what was your reaction to that, and what is your stance on that issue?
First, let me start with some good news. As is usual on an election year, we don't say grab for your wallet, and this year it's an election year, so people don't have to worry about tax increases, even though those who are doing Airbnb may be alerted that there's probably some legislation that's coming out for that one. But I've also found out from DOTAX there are 57,000 TAT filers. Having said that, people don't have to worry probably about a tax increase. Now, sanctuary cities, something about immigration I'm very familiar with. I went through the immigration process with my wife, who is from Malaysia, with my daughter, who is adopted from China, which you want to talk about going through legal immigration. I think I've gone through the ultimate of it. The difficulty with this sanctuary state is that it's the wrong issue at the wrong time. Immigration is a national issue. It's not one of the local issues that is something that should be front and center in the legislature. It's something that I think is going to hurt us. Case in point, 25% of our budget and growing is federal money. If we want to stick our fingers in the eyes of the president and his administration, I mean, go at it. But I don't think that's smart. And as my colleague Cynthia Thielen mentioned as we debated this on the floor last week, this draws attention to if and when there is an illegal, this issue is going to focus on them, and it's going to alert people to, hey, watch out for these people. So it's better that we don't have such a political statement, we don't have such a loss of potential revenue, and that we set aside this stuff that's going on at the national level, and we, as Hawaii, should be Hawaii.
The next bill that came up, or another one that came up, was HB 1851, which would define in loco parentis for purposes of exemption under Hawaii's obscenity laws and clarify the offense of promoting pornography for minors, and that it does not apply to a person who acts within the person's capacity and scope as a member of staff at any school. So I guess in layman terms, what does that bill do, and what were your concerns with that?
In the street language, this is if you're a teacher, you're exempt from pornography. Now, if anybody is listening to this, you say, well, how can you juxtapose teachers and pornography together? The bill doesn't define that, but I think it's a stigmatization of teachers and pornography, of which we've had some instances in different parts of the mainland. But I think it's a bill that is done in bad taste, and the DOE is against it. They want to protect their teachers. Some of the police departments say, well, it's necessary. Well, how many teachers are carrying around pornography? And is a science class on genitalia pornography, really? So I think that's a bill that people should be aware of, and particularly mothers, mother bears. This is something that should be alerted to them, and they should try to kill it, quite frankly.
Okay. So now we'll transition into what your office is doing. So we've got two bills going through the legislature. It's HB 1598 and 2706, and what that would do is create an international moon-based alliance to promote the space industry, and we'd hopefully have some experimentation on the Big Island. So what was your idea behind it, and why is this so important for Hawaii's future?
You know, for the last probably 30 or 40 years, we've tried to diversify our economy. Here we have a very strategic advantage on the Big Island. A moon-based alliance is essentially saying anybody who wants to go to the moon, because we're going to go to the moon, in fact, yesterday the president said we're going to privatize NASA even. If we're going to go to the moon, we got to have training on the moon for self-sufficiency and sustainability. Mauna Kea is the closest thing you can get to be on the moon. The basalt and all of the environment, except for the oxygen, is exactly the moon environment. So a moon-based alliance is saying all those nations within the Pacific and Asia and the Europeans, because they're trying to do the same thing, should align together and have a moon base to where we do the training on Mauna Loa. I believe it's Mauna Loa. Hank Rogers knows more detail about that. That there be a training and an alliance that says when we go to the moon, it's got to be for base supplies and integration for those who want to go off to Mars and to other places in the universe. So it's an exciting thing. It's a chance for good jobs. It's a chance to bring NASA money in, private sector money. And quite frankly, there's a tourism component where if we have a module here for training astronauts, we can have a module over here for visitors to simulate what it's like to be an astronaut, particularly for young people who want to see the vision of what it's like to live inside of the moon base.
Right.
So it's exciting. It's a different way of looking at the future.
Definitely. And we just had the chair of public safety mention more about the missile alert fiasco, of which you've been very outspoken on. So do you have any more comments?
Well, I'm still waiting
that?
for the governor to write back to the 4 letters that I've written to him for a response. And I'm still trying to get the tapes there's no tapes on the inside evidently, but there's tapes from the parking lot. I want to see who came, who went in and out the doors, and what are the things that we should expect. If you look at yesterday and today's Star Advertiser, there's still too many inconsistencies. It's confusing, particularly when now you have the button pusher having probably one of the best criminal lawyers in the state of Hawaii suing the state for defamation of the character of the button pusher. It's not clear, it doesn't pass the smell test, and I think we have to get to the bottom of it. If the HARA report, which was earlier mentioned, is coming at the end of the month, if that doesn't answer the questions, I think it behooves us in the House and the Senate to have our own investigation, to really say what really happened. Not all of this, well, we did this and then we changed the story to that. I think the people really deserve to know what's going on and how this will never, ever happen again.
And what other projects are you working on this session?
Interesting you would mention it because it's been a year in the making. It's called Broken Promises, the Land and Powerlessness in Hawaii, DHHL. It's a study of basically all the things that have happened over the last 100 years where they still have 27,000 people on the wait list and there's only 9,700 homesteaders. Representative DeCoite and I are going to release this paper shortly to really see what can be done and why it hasn't been done to this date. Native Hawaiians deserve better. They've been too patient for too long. And this is to sort of, not an expose, but a reasoning with our colleagues and the governor to say, look, 100 years ago we promised to do this. We haven't done it. It's a broken promise.
All right, Representative Ward, thank you for your time and thank you for joining us. Thank you to all who joined us today, and we'll see you next week.